Hello, my little chickadees. Welcome once more to Battle Mallet. This episode, of course, is taken from the old Fluffenhammer sanctioned days. This is, of course, part of the plan in order to have a new episode, old episode, new episode, old episode, alternating in order to give me time to get ahead of myself and to make sure that there's never going to be a point where there isn't a Battle Mallet ready to go for the following month. This one, of course, is Sexuality in the Grimdark, a look at sexuality in 40k. And it's just me and George having a good old banter, and it's tons of fun. It's one of my favourite episodes this month, in fact. As always, I will be doing a follow-up episode in 3 weeks' time, and that's for you to give me all of the things. What you think of the topic, what you think of the episode, what you think of the Fluffenhammer in general, and if you've got any questions, to throw them in here. Give me your cubes and I will give you the A's. And that's really all I need to say. I've introduced, and now I pass you over to Past Me. Take it, Past Me!
Hello, my little chickadees.
Oh dear.
It's Adam here, bringing you another Fluffenhammer Patreon exclusive show.
Ooh.
Sitting here at the dark place on my throne of used Vincent Price DVDs.
Oh, fabulous! I'm well up for that. Well up for that. I'm on a bit of a Vincent Price kick at the moment. I don't know whether you know. I like the man a lot. So,
well,
yeah.
As well you should, because Vincent Price is one of the single greatest horror actors who ever lived. It's really easy to think of Vincent Price as the joke that he became, so to speak. Yeah, the public consciousness of Vincent Price, the over theatrical hammy voice, which, to be honest, he doesn't use very much.
He doesn't use it that often. That's the odd thing. The parody has become, it's almost like replaced the reality.
Yes.
It's so strange. It's so strange. He's quite contained.
Mm-hmm.
In most of his roles. Okay, there are ones where he just lets it go, like Dr. Phoebes or stuff like that, where he just lets it go, and that's glorious too. But often he's very restrained, and he moves around the screen with the elegance of a stately magpie, you know?
Have you watched his version of The Pit and the Pendulum yet?
I have, yes.
Do you not find it really weird watching that film, that Price, this giant of a man, I mean, he's not physically massive, but he's very tall, and he's getting on in age a little bit there, so he's getting a bit portly.
Yeah.
And he spends the entire film acting weak and frail and unstable, and it's so unsettling watching it.
Yeah. But anyway, yes. Enough. Worship, ladies and gents. If you're a sort of Vincent Price virgin, as it were, just go onto Amazon or Netflix or whatever and go and find some of his films, like Mask of the Red Death or Witchfinder General or something like that. He's superb.
Last Man on Earth.
Last Man on Earth. Yeah. And any of the interviews with him, because he's charming. He's absolutely charming.
And that person, of course, saying all the wonderful things about Vincent Price was George. Hello, George.
Oh, hello, Adam. Hello. We've got an interesting one for you today, ladies and gents. A very interesting one indeed. I mean, this is one that's very, very sort of close and personal to my own particular interests on a very, very, very wide level. This is the subject of today's Patreon exclusive. It's something that resonates throughout all of my interests, my obsessions, the themes that dominate the media that I consume. What are we doing, Adam?
We're going to be talking about basically sex and hang on. I just swallowed a mint.
Oh, that was a little fly that came in, and it's sort of like, no, you're not. This is going to be a Nurgle podcast. We're going to be talking about disease, and decay, and rot, and despair.
We're going to be talking about the mumps.
Actually, we're not, ladies and gents. What Adam was going to say there before he got attacked by a Nurgling, before a Nurgling tried to insert itself down his throat. It's going to be a kind of a broad podcast, this one. We're going to be talking about sex, sexuality, gender identity within the mythologies of Games Workshop, and on a much wider level too.
Yes.
So this one is going to be probably a bit less jokey than some of the others, I'd imagine. Anyway, who knows? It could go anywhere. But it's also it's most certainly going to be the most not safe for work one, and probably one of the more contentious ones. So if you do have issues with this particular thing, don't listen.
Or, in all honesty, because I do feel that conversation is a dying art, if you have issues with this and you want to discuss them, I am more than happy to have a level-headed discussion.
Absolutely.
If you just want to shout and scream, then I'm going to ignore you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because there's no point. But if
Space Marines can't be women, etc.
Sort of. The act of conversation is one that I thoroughly enjoy, and if you would like to hold a conversation with either me or George on any forum...
Absolutely, I'm well open to this, because this is a subject that's very, very close to my heart. It really is. It's something that I read about often. It's something that I explore through my own fiction, and is pertinent to my own life, of course, because for those who don't know, I identify as LGBTQ. I'm a gay man. So this is really interesting to me. It's particularly interesting when it comes to things like Games Workshop, because traditionally, I think this is fair to say, isn't it, Adam, that traditionally speaking, Games Workshop has been it's been a sort of straight, phallocentric community, or rather it's been dominated by those demographics, classically speaking.
Yes, a lot of what Games Workshop aimed for in its early days was the young male market.
And that's, given its influences, given where it came from, that's not a surprise.
Of course not.
I mean, what is it generally informed by? What are the key influences in Games Workshop's worlds and universes? It's Tolkien, it's Lovecraft, and it's Moorcock.
Yeah.
It is an attempt to fuse the elements of all of those mythologies into one coherent whole, or semi-coherent, as it may be. And if you look at those mythologies, they are classically phallocentric and also largely sexless, which is very interesting to me.
Very much so. I mean, we talked at length about this with the Lovecraft episode, that Lovecraft's work has no sexuality in it whatsoever. The only time gender turns up in any way, shape or form is either a lost love, someone who's died, or something to be feared from afar.
Absolutely, it's the very often. I mean, if there is any kind, there's no romance in Lovecraft. Let's get rid of that. There's no romance at all. What there is descriptions of, not even descriptions. There are references to unions that occur for a particular function. So you may have a female character that is in Congress with, or is even raped by some otherworldly entity and gives birth to something hideous.
Yes.
For example. That's largely the only time these matters occur. There are hardly any female characters in Lovecraft. Hardly any at all. And even when they occur, they're not really characters. They're kind of archetypes that exist for the function of story. Almost every story he ever wrote is from the perspective of a male character. In fact, I cannot think of one that is not from the perspective of a male character.
There is no female perspectives in Lovecraft's work whatsoever.
And interestingly, almost all of those males are unmarried, they don't have girlfriends, they are academic, they're isolated. They're very like Lovecraft. They're sort of projections of Lovecraft himself.
Wait, hang on. Are you saying that all of Lovecraft's work are just Mary Sue's? This is he's created the pinnacle of what he feels he could ever be, and this is it.
In his own odd way. I mean, he despite the fact that he was married himself, he was a largely sexless human being. I mean, I don't think he had a great deal of interest.
No, and
in that
he had
magisteria.
Yeah. But if you look at we discussed this in greater depth with the Lovecraft show, but if you look at Lovecraft's upbringing, which was entirely matriarchal, there was an almost unhealthy fear of women in his life. Which
is hardly bloody surprising.
Well, no, because his entire family was doolally ratchet.
And almost very abusive. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. You cannot say one way or the other whether it was physically abusive. It probably was. And it was certainly emotionally abusive.
Yeah, the psychological scars that Lovecraft was left with in his teenage years are unknowable, because we will never find out the full story of whatever happened to him when he was younger. We just have these tidbits.
But I have suspicions, given the things that he talks about and the way he expresses them. I think he was probably abused quite badly when he was young. I think he had a very unhealthy relationship with both his mother and the two aunts that adopted him.
Yes.
And as a result, his fiction it just ignores sexuality and gender. It is just not a concept in them at all. The characters, I mean, it's hard to even describe the characters in Lovecraft as male.
Yeah, the ciphers.
Yeah, it's as though they're shorn off, isn't it? It's as though they're like action men in a way. They have no sort of genitalia at all, and nothing that would entail, nothing that would result in. And the same is true in the other influences too. Moorcock, again, a largely very male power fantasy by and large. Yes, very male.
I'm working my way through Moorcock's work at the moment.
How are you finding it, Adam? How are you finding it?
Very dry.
It's hard, isn't it?
Yes.
I understand. Moorcock's one of those odd ones. I understand why he had that renaissance, along with Lovecraft interest and Tolkien. They both had renaissances back in the 1980s.
They did.
When Games Workshop had its own renaissance, of course. I understand why that happened. I understand why he was popular amongst particular demographics. At the same time, coming at him now, you kind of have to appreciate him as an historical artifact, because it's very, very difficult to read.
Weirdly enough, this is such a weird way to describe it. I'm actually finding it easier to read the comics than it is to books.
Yeah, I totally get that.
But throughout what I've discovered so far of Moorcock's work is there is a lot more character taking place within these books. It's a lot more of the fantasy genre of the time being turned on its head and played with within the sandbox of the decade it was written in.
Yeah.
But women in that are very much women in Conan or the Deathstalker series. They are rewards.
Yes, they're objects. They are literally objectified in this mythology. They are not characters in and of themselves. They are rewards for particular acts. And the same is true in Tolkien, but to a lesser extent, you know? Again, Tolkien, there are female characters in the sense that they are described as female, but that's as far as it goes. They don't actually demonstrate any actual characteristics or even any great degree of character depth. By and large, they're archetypes. They're archetypes that exist to fulfill particular mythological concerns, because that's what Tolkien was trying to do. But again, a largely sexless universe with very little in the way of any kind of gender identity, and that's really interesting. I mean, there is this whole thing in Tolkien, a sort of postmodern reading, where there is a particular relationship between the male characters that occurs, where you have like this very intensely emotional relationship between characters like Sam and Frodo, for example.
Yes,
and it is true. I mean, it is not a homosexual relationship in the sense that no actual like sex occurs, but it is a homoromantic one. It really is. There is this... Sam, for the length of The Lord of the Rings, is basically married to Frodo.
Well, you know, they do squabble about who wears the ring, so...
They kind of do.
Okay,
they are basically married to one another.
Yeah,
and it's very lovely.
Never thought of it like that. Yeah,
it's very touching, you know. It's very beautiful. It's a very beautiful relationship. It's a very close and often very physical relationship, a very intimate one. But it stops short of being a homosexual one, because of course Sam goes home, gets married to Rosie Cotton at the end. And in fact that's interesting too, because that is the only time when there is even the suggestion of a romantic relationship that occurs outside of mythology and the fulfillment of particular archetypes, you know. When Sam marries Rosie, it's a domestic relationship.
It is.
But almost all of the characters are largely sexless. Like Frodo, who is the protagonist, the main character, is asexual.
Yes.
Completely asexual. There is no romantic entanglement at all, and I don't think he even has there's no reference to any kind of intimate urge in Frodo at all.
No. Well, same with Bilbo, though. Bilbo had no real romantic urges whatsoever. Gandalf.
Technically, they're kind of married to the ring, aren't they? They have their most intense relationship is with the ring. Outside of the characters like Gollum,
there's a Freudian image right there, George.
Tolkien would be spinning in his fucking grave knowing that we're talking about this, because he hated allegory. He hated he claimed to hate allegory. He claimed to hate metaphor and whatnot. But the sad fact of the matter is, you can't write anything without it being allegory or metaphor. It's not possible. It's one of those weird areas where I powerfully disagree with him about his own work. You know,
yes, yeah.
There's so clear metaphors and allegory to his experiences in the World War and whatnot. You know, it's so clear to his own Catholicism, to the mythologies he was trying to evoke. And here, in this instance, there are allegories to other things, you know? Bilbo, Frodo, and Gollum share very intense relationships with one another and with the ring.
Yes.
You know, there is definitely something that's worth delving into there. And also, all unmarried, all, disinterested in romantic relationships.
What was the name of the hobbit that Smeagol murdered to get the ring?
Deagle.
That's the one.
Deagle.
So, Beagle.
Yeah.
Smeagol, Deagle, Beagle, and Eagle. DuckTales. You've conjured up an interesting thought here that I haven't had time to fully think it through yet.
Yeah.
But there is something there. All of them call each other and the ring my precious.
My precious,
at some
my
point.
love.
Yeah.
My love. You get my love a lot. In fact, Gollum and Smeagol, because of course there are two characters inside Gollum's skin. There's Gollum, which is the sort of split personality that was created by the ring.
Yes.
It's the most negative aspects of Smeagol personified. Him and Smeagol occur in this abusive domestic relationship where they refer to one another as my love, as my precious, and they abuse and berate one another. It's a totally abusive, married relationship, and it's as close to a romance as occurs in The Lord of the Rings. But it is also the case that Gollum refers to Frodo sometimes as my love, as my precious, as whatever. Refers to himself and the ring as both my love and my precious.
I'm not going to lie, I always read that in a Cornish voice, so I've never really thought about it too much.
But it's interesting, isn't it? You do get these very intense male relationships, which again is a kind of reference to Tolkien's own influences, because if you look at the classic mythologies that he was trying to evoke and reference, there often are these very intense male entanglements, because they're primarily male. They're primarily phallocentric. There is often no female characters in them, or rather they're just female archetypes, like Galadriel. You know, Galadriel is this put upon a pedestal, almost divine figure of womanhood, which is totally virginal and male prescribed, if you like. It's totally male prescribed. It's unthreatening femalehood.
Yeah.
It's the unthreatening woman who occupies a template that has been prescribed by the male characters around her and is therefore very safe. She's very safe, regardless of how the films try to sort of make her a little bit more threatening. It doesn't really work. She's a totally safe character.
I think in the hands of any other actress, she wouldn't have worked. But I think in the hands of
Cate Blanchett, she's great. In fact, this is something that's worth referencing. Actually, the films take it further. The films do try to make the female characters more characterized.
Yeah. Well, before we recorded, we were talking about Eowyn. No, Eowyn.
Eowyn, yeah. Eowyn's her brother.
Doing well,
Eowyn's her brother.
It's just Eowyn in a dress. Well,
it very well could be.
Yeah.
It very well could be, given Eowyn's archetype, the archetype that she fulfills, you know.
But in the films, what they do, weirdly enough, is they make her a more rounded character and a better female character by cutting stuff out of the book.
Absolutely, I totally agree. I know that there are Tolkien fans out there who are probably going to what did they say? You know, let me put it this way. I was a diehard Tolkienite until I was about 12, right? I read the books 12 times when I was a kid. I know so much about this mythology. The films are way better than the books, for me. Speaking personally, I think the films do stuff with the story that Tolkien probably should have done but didn't.
Or wouldn't have been able to in that time.
Absolutely. Just wouldn't have been able to. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And one of the key things is Eowyn. The female characters in general, actually. Eowyn is a much more interesting character in the films than she is in the books. In the books, she starts interesting. For one thing, she's the only female character that's an actual character.
Yes, she is.
In the books. She's not. She is an archetype. She's a particular mythological archetype. But she's also interesting in that she functions to break the prescriptions and templates of those archetypes by taking on aspects that are more classically male. You know, the warrior, the rider, the hero character. That's what she becomes. In the books, that is undermined by the end. It's almost like a punishment. It's almost like she's punished for daring to break out of those restrictions, you know? She's dragged back in and just becomes the female character to be married off to one of the male characters, in this instance Faramir, which kills her. I've always wanted to write the story after that. You know, there's a really horrible, mean-spirited part of me that wants to write the marriage after that, where she realizes that she settled for Faramir because she wanted Aragorn. In the book, she falls in love with Aragorn. In the film, she falls in love with Aragorn. And in the film, there's no reference to she stands side by side with Faramir at the end of the films, and that's all you get. There's no reference to her like marrying Faramir. In the book, she marries Faramir. And it even states the reason she does it is because he reminds her of Aragorn. He's like Aragorn light. Because she can't have Aragorn. You know? I mean, that is the basis for a fucked up marriage right there.
Would you call him Faragon?
Faragon, yeah, or Aramir, maybe. Aramir. Yeah. That I want to write the relationship after that, where they don't talk to one another, where, you know, he's off being the steward of Gondor and she's busy maybe having an affair or something, you know? I've always... there's a horrible part of me. It's like the part of me that wants to rewrite Beauty and the Beast, right? I've always wanted to rewrite Beauty and the Beast after the fact, where Belle realises that she fell in love with the beast, not the man. Yes, and she wants the beast. And where the beast realises, as the man, that he was happier as the beast than he ever was as a human being. Because as a beast, he was mythological, he was big, he was powerful, he was strong, you know? He was atavistic. And where it all falls apart as a result of that.
I've always thought when it comes to Beauty and the Beast, that relationship would never work because it's built on a timer, so to speak, where there had to fall in, quotations, love by the time that the rose petal had finished, falling all the petals falling off it. And because of that sense of urgency, once that's removed, that relationship loses a lot of the passion and the power behind it.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. This is the fun thing. This is the way my imagination works, unfortunately. It's that kind of Neil Gaiman thing, you know, where you want to pervert the archetype, you want to pervert the fantasy a little bit, or rather you're applying real-world complexity to the mythology.
Yes,
I find that fascinating. In the same way that Terry Pratchett does, as we were discussing just before we came on air. I think Pratchett, for a lot of people, is this jumping-off point for Tolkien and for Moorcock and for for the more classically enshrined fantasy series, because what Pratchett does is he exposes to you the innate absurdities of these universes, and he applies complexity to them. So in Pratchett, you do get gay characters, you do get real-world prejudices and complexities and cultural complexities that don't exist in The Lord of the Rings or in The Eternal Champion or even in Lovecraft. I mean, Lovecraft is a bit more complex because it does ostensibly occur in the real world, or rather not in a non-mythologized world. But still, the same parameters apply. That I think a lot of people, I certainly came to it like this. I don't know about you, Adam. But I discovered Pratchett when I was about kind of 11, 10 years old, maybe.
Pretty much.
And it kind of blew my mind. It's an uncomfortable revelation if all you've been exposed to is the classic stuff, the more earnest stuff like Tolkien, stuff like C.S. Lewis. It's an uncomfortable revelation because you realise the faults of it.
Yeah. Once you go Pratchett, unfortunately, it's very hard to go back.
Absolutely.
The way that I've managed to do it over the years is purely because I have an interest in the history of things, where things come from, and where a lot of the current landscape of fiction literature and sci-fi and fantasy comes from. So going back and rereading the Conan and whatnot comes quite naturally to me. But once I had read a large amount of Pratchett, and I think it was probably when I was actually coming up to being 14, 15, Lords and Ladies had just come out.
Ah, right.
And that is probably the turning point for me. And I remember actually going back and rereading a lot of the Pratchett I already read. I mean, granted, I came into it with things like Diggers and the Carpet People.
So softer stuff, really. Sort of like,
I mean, the Diggers, the Bromeliad trilogy is fantastic. But even then, the Bromeliad trilogy has a giant spike through the centre of it going, men are not the best thing ever. Because part of the evolution of that story is that the female gnomes are coming to the fore and taking over parts of the jobs. The best engineer they've got is a female.
Yeah, this is something Pratchett does brilliantly. I mean, as we discussed earlier, that there is this tendency for female, just not only the characters but the entire phenomena of women to be displaced in these mythologies. They're referenced. Sometimes you get template characters who are actually just archetypes rather than being real characters turning up, but they are largely ignored. Like the dwarfs, for example. You never see a female dwarf in the entirety of Tolkien.
No, you don't.
Ever. I don't even. I may be wrong, and I'm sure someone will correct me if there's maybe one like talked about in the Silmarillion or something. But I don't think there is a named dwarf female in the entire mythology.
Don't act like the Silmarillion's a book. It's not a book.
As opposed to being like a sort of historical document.
It's just some notes. That's all it is.
Yeah. But there is not a female dwarf in the entirety of the thing. But we know they exist. They do exist, obviously, because, the dwarfs procreate to an extent.
Do you think dwarfs just jump out of the ground?
Yeah, absolutely. But they are not referenced, and you even like the races where you do see the female characters, like the elves and the human beings, they are just archetypes. Mostly they're in the background, they're referenced, they're things to either be saved or to claim as prizes by and large, and that's it. That is it. What Pratchett does, he comes along and he drives like a feminist steamroller through the entire thing. He introduces complexity. He introduces characters who are characters. He introduces female characters who are complex and interesting and funny, who are often better than the male characters at what they do. And he throws them into these worlds and into these mythologies where they would classically be in the background. Characters like Nanny Og, Granny Weatherwax, and he does the whole spectrum. He takes like the archetypes, the classic mythological archetypes of the maid and the mother and the crone, and he turns them completely on their heads. He inverts them completely and rips them away from the sort of classically phallocentric male prescribed parameters. That they came under.
Right. Deep breath, because I'm now going to get started on the witches, and this may take at least 7 days. So the joy that I find with the witches, with Granny Og, Nanny Og, Granny Weatherwax, and Margaret Garlick, is that I love Magrat. Love Magrat so very much.
Me too. I love her.
Granny Weatherwax should be this horrifying, scary-looking woman, but she's actually, when you look at her, outside of the eyes, she is quite attractive.
She's described as handsome, isn't she?
That's the one. Yeah,
she's described as a handsome woman. She's a very
striking figure.
She's stern looking, isn't she? She's not classically beautiful, and probably never was, but there is something about her.
And then you've got Nanny Og, who has had so many children that she has become. She's become the woman that all of us know.
Basically,
she is fun-loving. I mean, she never comes out and says it, but one of the reasons that she's got so many children is she enjoys sex.
She enjoys sex like a motherfucker. She is like... this is something... I mean, this is... Thinking about it now, and the time that the Witches books were published, having a character like that was a mother, that was married, that's a little bit elderly, that is female, who likes sex, and who actually talks about it. That is wildly revolutionary, especially in a fantasy series.
The thing is, she doesn't talk about it as in it's the only thing she talks about.
No.
You know, she's just got tons of dirty jokes. She likes...
Absolutely.
I mean, she is a well-rounded character. And as much as I love Granny Weatherwax, and I do love Granny Weatherwax, she is probably the basis for my entire interest in psychology.
Yeah.
Nanny Ogg is just this wonderful tempest of a human being.
Yeah.
You know, there is
She's
layers to her.
Oh, yeah.
She?
And I imagine really charming. The way he writes Nanny Ogg, she's kind of brash and kind of brazen, but you get the impression that if you were around her, you'd want to be around her.
Yeah. Well, look at the entire relationship she has with Casanunda.
Yeah.
You know, Casanunda has fallen for her. You know,
absolutely.
The world's second greatest lover. He isn't seeing, as much as he says he sees her as the conquest that can never be conquered.
Yeah.
You know, she is the ultimate trial of his skills. Over time, he has actually fallen in love with her. And you can tell that he doesn't really want to do the one night stand with her. He's just fascinated and wants to spend time with her.
Yeah.
Oh God, I love Nanny Ogg.
It's so strange, isn't it? And again, you have these inversions. Like, technically, the crone is Granny Weatherwax.
Yes, she is.
Technically speaking, but she is not the crone because she is not the end of days. She is actually the one who saves the day. She's the life giver, and she's also beautiful. She's also, she's statuesque and beautiful to look at, which again is in complete defiance of the archetype.
Yeah.
Magrat is the maiden, and she kind of fulfills that role to a certain degree, but only to a certain degree.
Until she has a child,
Until she has a child. And what I love about the progression of Magrat Garlick in that series, she starts off as being very innocent and very naive, and later on she kind of becomes Nanny Ogg.
Yeah. But
she kind of, once
Magrat she's an amazing character because of the evolution of where she gets to. She becomes the halfway point between Granny and Nanny.
Yeah. Absolutely.
She ends up from the wet blanket that she was originally. Yeah. And, that's the entire point. She has to be a wet blanket in order to become more. Yeah. In the lesser hands, she would have been she would either been a very plain-looking woman that you wouldn't really have looked twice at, but still would have had massive tits. Because that's how a plain woman looks in fantasy women.
That's how these mythologies roll, isn't it?
I apologise for the crudeness there, but
it's absolutely true, though.
Oh, yeah.
It's absolutely true. There is this, whether people like it or not, and this doesn't mean that you have to completely condemn them or that you have to completely reject them.
Of course
but
not.
The place of women in these mythologies is not a good one.
No.
It's not a positive one. It's this male power fantasy stuff. It's this Robert E. Howard Conan stuff, which is just a male power fantasy.
Of course it is, yeah.
Conan is a giant cock. He is a giant penis, and that's the end of it. I mean, in every respect, that's what he is.
Yeah, he puts his sword in everything.
He is this power fantasy that is kind of written by this sheltered guy who, again, had an unhealthy relationship with his mother, who was very infantilized, probably didn't have a very good relationship with women at all. And that's traditionally the audience he's speaking to, too.
Yeah.
That's true. That is not. That is traditionally true.
Before we get away from Pratchett, though, just two things. One is that Magrat, she starts off that, but then you have the Bodicea moment with her, where she the Queen Yinsi, which is just this wonderful experience where she just goes crazy with an axe and a helmet.
Yeah.
And then someone had to say to her, well, Nanny and Granny are talking later on. It's like, you didn't tell her that Queen Yinsi didn't really exist, did you? It's like, no. Because
Magrat's got it in her head that she could feel the spirit of the Queen Yinsi. Yeah. It's almost like possessing her, and it's a total fabrication.
Well, the fabrication, the lie that happens in the book is that a king wanted to have a more traditional fantasy background.
Yeah.
Basically. So he made the Red Sonja character and created her and had a painting commissioned. So it's just this wonderful moment. But another one I want to quickly talk about is Angua.
Angua the werewolf.
Yeah. Angua is what you'd classify physically to be the quintessential fantasy female. Right?
She is, in the same way that her counterpart Corporal Carrot
exactly,
is. He's Conan.
Yeah.
He's Conan in looks and in terms of the way he functions, but not in his head.
Yes. Yes.
In his head, he's something totally different. Totally different. And I love the dynamic between them, because he's the kind of character that he's undermining masculine archetypes, certain prescriptions of what would be now called toxic masculinity, and it is.
Yes.
It absolutely is. This very sort of emotionless, rapine male character that is all muscle, that solves things by swinging his sword, or his, in Freudian terms, his dick about, and beheading people with it. He's the complete inversion of that, and Pratchett does it very deliberately. Very deliberately.
Then I always remember there's, in Men at Arms, there's the sequence where Corporal Claret shoots somebody.
Yep.
Right? And it's done matter-of-factly.
Yeah.
And I always find that a hell of a lot more terrifying than swinging the sword around and shouting. Because he realises it's a very simple one, and the innocence that he portrays afterwards is a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what you say there. If he was the typical masculine hero, it would have been a, not today, villain type moment. Yeah. But in reality, it was you're just too dangerous to live. Bang.
Yeah. Yeah. I also love the basis of his relationship with Angua, because he's besotted with Angua, because they're kind of meant to be.
Yes.
They are, they are those characters that in a classic mythology she would be the prize for him.
Yes.
It doesn't work out like that, because it turns out that, interestingly, Carrot has a prejudice against the undead.
Mm-hmm.
That is fascinating. Because he is this almost perfect character.
Mm-hmm.
He's almost impossibly perfect. And what Pratchett does really well is he demonstrates how fucking irritating these characters are in any kind of complex situation or real life situation. Carrot wants to be that classic D&D barbarian hero.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to be noble. He wants the world to be simple. He wants everything to be black and white. He wants there to be good and there to be evil. And it's just not the case. The world perpetually defeats him and defeats his archetype of masculinity, which I think is fucking brilliant. I think it's absolutely brilliant because he operates on classically mythological rails, if you like, or within parameters. The world around him doesn't conform to those parameters, and so he is perpetually defeated.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the course of Men at Arms, he is perpetually defeated, and I love that, no more so than by Angua herself, because Angua, although she physically represents that classic buxom blonde barbarian princess character, she's not that.
No,
she is this very pragmatic woman who's very real, very psychologically complex, and she just wants to get on.
Yeah.
She just wants to get on with her life, and she likes Carrot, she likes him, but she's fucking irritated by him. As everybody is, as the reader is, in fact.
Yeah.
Because he's so naive, and he wants the world to be so simplistic. He wants it to be a cartoon. He wants it to be the kind of cartoon that Robert E. Howard and Tolkien draw.
Yeah.
That's what he wants. He wants it to be simple. He wants everyone to be an archetype. And what Pratchett does is breaks it down. It turns out that Angua is a werewolf, and Carrot hates werewolves.
Yep. So,
and there's a fantastic scene, actually, where, again, another undermining of this kind of thing, where there is this obsession with sex, this simultaneous obsession with sex in these mythologies, but also a fear of it. So it tends to draw away,
Yeah.
It tends to refer to it euphemistically, whereas I think it is it Guards, or is it Men at Arms? It's at Men at Arms, isn't it, where Carrot does sleep with Angua at one point.
Yes, yeah. Might have actually been Feet of Clay, to be honest with you.
Is it Feet of Clay where they sleep together for the first time?
Yes, because all through Men at Arms, he's trying to court her.
Right. And she wakes up as a werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
She wakes up as the wolf, and there is this moment between them.
Actually, no, I think you're right. I think that is in Men at Arms.
It's at Men at Arms, isn't it? Because all through Carrot has talked about how evil werewolves are, because they are classically evil. Like in a D&D universe, in a Tolkien universe, a werewolf would just be evil. It would just be a bad character. Mm-hmm. Here, the werewolf is so much more complex because Pratchett uses it as a very classic metaphor for that, for a woman, for that time of the month, for the moon, the sun, all that kind of thing. And it complexifies Carrot's world in a way that he finds very difficult, and which the readers of that kind of mythology that he's referencing would also find very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It's very clever. What Pratchett is trying to do is get his audience to grow up a bit.
Yes. And I think that was always the way that Pratchett wanted to. He wanted people to start looking at the world in different eyes.
Yeah.
And for all intents and purposes, he succeeded massively.
Oh, he absolutely succeeded. Absolutely. I think this happens. I think this is what happens. You grow up and you read the stuff like Michael Moorcock, like Tolkien, like C.S. Lewis. You're exposed to those things as a kid or as a young man. And then you start to branch out. You start to realise that actually there is something rather sinister about these mythologies, whether you like it or not, or whether you still enjoy them or not. There is this infantilization where they try to make the world simplistic. They want humanity to be archetypes. They want the world to operate on rails and with reference to very clean-cut parameters. And it just doesn't.
No.
It just doesn't.
The world is messy and chaotic and dirty.
Exactly. And then you start to find Neil Gaiman, you start to find China Miéville, you start to find Clive Barker, you start to find Poppy Z. Bright, you start to find, all of these writers, Terry Pratchett, big one, that actually they show you that you can have these archetypes, you can have this kind of fiction, and you can appreciate the complexity of reality through them.
Yes.
Well,
one of the things that, before we get into the Warhammer worlds themselves, I wanted to talk about was China Miéville, because I mean, in Perdido Street Station, which is the first of his new Crobuzon books, sexuality is on display.
Yeah.
And it's done so in a way that is there to make you sit up and pay attention.
Yeah.
Not through its graphic nature, because there very little sex actually happens within the book. I think there's 2 scenes where they talk about the beginnings of the act, but never actually get into it.
Right.
But the main character, he's having sex with an ant lady. He fell in love with a woman who is basically a humanized ant creature.
Fantastic. Love it.
And that's how the book starts. And they even over breakfast sign to each other, because the ant lady has to talk through sign language and he talks.
Brilliant. Right? I love it.
So there's this giant cross-cultural exchange happening. But they call themselves Lovely Pervert.
I love it.
Yeah, I love you, pervert.
That's brilliant.
I love you too, you lovely pervert. Because of the way that their relationship would be seen by the outside as a whole. There's no Romeo and Juliet star-crossed lovers happening here.
No.
It is these two, in the more liberal areas of New Crobuzon, can go to as a couple, but outside of those areas, they can't. And it wouldn't be through... there's no high and mighty, you'd be thrown onto the pyre for it. It would just be, as what happens in day-to-day life when a coupling happens that people... the average person in the street takes a dislike to.
Well, if like attack, for example, walk down the street holding hands with a boyfriend, that's the very clear metaphor that's going on there.
Very much so.
That's the very clear metaphor. It's something that. Sorry, go on.
So, but then that it gets expanded on and mutated through Iron Council, the second of the books, where the main character is a gay man, and the quest for the book, so to speak. Because it starts that way, the China starts playing around with the idea of a quest, is to find a teacher. So the guy is trying to find his old teacher. And it isn't until not that far through the book, but fairly far through, that you realise that he's trying to find his teacher because his teacher is his lover. Right?
Okay,
so the entire quest is a gay relationship, a homosexual relationship.
That's very clever. I like that.
Through that book, they discover I'm trying to remember, is it a tribe or is it a race? I want to say, we'll use the word tribe because I can't quite remember now. And he is surprised at how open they are with their sexuality, because he comes from this big city, which is for all intents and purposes, a steampunk London. And it's very much meant to be that. There's a point where they're all sitting through the fire. 2 men of this tribe, they look at each other and they just start masturbating each other.
Right.
In front of the fire, and he's shocked at the openness of it. It's like this doesn't happen in Crobuzon, but it's for this tribe. No, we needed the release, otherwise we wouldn't be able to concentrate, and we have to hunt.
So it's I mean, that's really fascinating. I really like that. I really, really like that. It's because it's a shocking image. It's designed to make the audience sort of like really sit up and pay attention. and to sort of question their own neuroses, their own parameters, you know, because it's like, well, ostensibly, what is the problem?
Yeah. Well,
you know,
I mean, from their point of view, this is just something that they would do in order to both, give themselves pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also to make sure that they are able to do the job at hand when they have to go
there's almost
hunting.
like a functional quality to it. I mean, it is. I mean, it's a fascinating thing, isn't it? A lot of writers do this. A lot of sort of postmodern writers do this. Pratchett does it a lot. China Miéville does it all the time. Neil Gaiman does it, where he'll take like classic fairy tales, like folklore myths, and he will not put into them stuff that isn't there. He will just take what the undercurrents, like the suggestions and the intimations of them, and bring them into the foreground. So all of like the sexual neuroses that are in things like Snow White, he brings them forward. There is I think it's in Gaiman's collection Smoke and Mirrors, there is this rewriting of Snow White, right? Where the Prince Charming character, is a necrophile. Which is actually, if you stop and think about it for 2 seconds, that is actually in the original story. Not in the original story, because there isn't a Prince Charming, but in the one that's largely accepted, because he finds Snow White when she's ostensibly dead.
Yep.
And brings her back to life with a kiss. So it's there, you just don't notice it. It's very clever. It's very clever because it's exposing you to something that you just don't notice. Yeah. But is right there in front of you. Angela Carter, very, very famous feminist and magic realist writer, who wrote The Magic Toy Shop, which is a rewriting of The Leader and the Swan myth, and also The Bloody Chamber, which is a collection of short stories which are classic mythological tales or folklore tales which are rewritten with a feminist perspective, but also to bring out all of the sexuality of them. People out there may know it, actually, even if they haven't read the book. They may have seen the film Company of Wolves.
Oh, yes.
The Company of Wolves is based on The Bloody Chamber. Well worth looking at, because this is something that she does too. She will take the classic folk tales and fairy tales, the grim fairy tales and whatnot, and she looks for the sexual neuroses within them, like I'm having a brain fart. Fuck.
Ginger snaps.
Not ginger snaps, no, but that's kind of similar.
The only thing I could think of, I'm afraid. I'm sorry.
Little Red Riding Hood. Sorry,
right. I was way off.
That's the sort of basis for The Bloody Chamber, in the same way it's the basis for the film, for A Company of Wolves. The sexual stuff that's just simmering under the surface of Little Red Riding Hood is unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
It's unbelievable. I mean, first of all, the symbolism of the red cloak is fairly overt, but the wolf is like male.
Yeah.
The wolf is a powerful male character that is just atavistic. He is just male lust and male appetite given form. He's the id.
Yeah.
He's the male id, effectively, trying to draw the virginal character off the path into the woods, you know? And that's what Angela Carter brings out. They are well worth reading. But Barker does it too. Barker does it a hell of a lot. If you've read one of my favourite books by Barker, Weave World, his whole inspiration for that, he said he wanted to bring sex to Wonderland.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you've got, basically. It's a world where it's very real. It starts very real because it's set in like 1980s Liverpool. So it's like in the midst of Thatcherite 1980s Liverpool. It's this very dirty, very real, very deprived place. And then you have this eruption of a kind of wonderland into it, where there are magical creatures and there are these surreal beings that can perform miracles. But the world itself, the fantasy world, is as complex and as ambiguous and often as dirty and as strange and as bizarre as the real world, as complex as the real world. And you do have these sort of shifting gender roles. You have this gender politics going on in it. you have sex introduced, which again is unusual. It is still unusual, even though there's a lot that have tried it now. There are lots of writers that have tried to introduce sex and sexuality into a kind of Wonderland setting. It's still something that we tend to look at and think, that's very, very odd.
Yeah.
Not sure if it fits, because classically, traditionally, these mythologies were sexless.
Yes. Yeah, outside of maybe some of the Greek mythologies.
Well, actually, I mean, really, I'm looking at this from a sort of an almost Anglo-centric perspective.
Yeah, Anglo-centric
if you look at like the ancient Greek mythologies, that's definitely not the case. They're full of it.
Yeah.
And in like the most deviant way imaginable. I mean, you've got like, we referenced earlier Leda and the Swan. I mean, that is Zeus transforming himself into a swan to rape a young girl. So there's bestiality, there's all sorts of stuff going on there. Yeah, the ancient Greek mythology is just full of it. And if you go further back before like the invasions and the impositions of Christianity here in the UK, back to what we would now call fallaciously, as it turns out, the sort of Celtic or Druidic mythologies. Those things kind of don't really mean anything, but for the sake of this argument, those stories, like the old stories of Lou Silverhand and of the old gods of this island, again, loads of sex. Loads of sex. They're built into it. And not only that, but what's really interesting about those most ancient forms of mythologies, they have a lot of gender equality in them.
Well, look at the legend characters. Of like Lilith, Lilith, the Wraith. The Druidic waif, who basically ended up being a better druid than any of the druids, and was stoned to death for it. You know,
the Lilith character is a really fascinating one because she actually she's an odd one because there's a lot of apocrypha about Lilith. She may have originally come about as a way of rewriting ancient Talmudic traditions to make them seem less pure. It may have actually been like a sort of early Christian attempt to undermine those ancient traditions, but there are references to a character called Lilitu or Lilith throughout the ancient world, from ancient Greek to Sumerian. Classically, originally, the tale was that she was the first wife of Adam.
Yes, that is one of them. She was Lilith was it Lilith in the Bible? Then
I can't remember. It's been ages since.
It's why I call it Lilith because there are like 5 million different versions of that tale and how it works out. But
you will find like references to this archetype throughout mythology. But she's the first wife of Adam who was equal to him.
Yes.
Unlike Eve, she was created equal to him and therefore rebelled. And it's all about sex. It's all about sex. It's the metaphor is that she wanted to be on top, basically, and that was not the place prescribed for women in that mythology. So she was cast out, and she goes out into the realms and she fornicates with devils and demons and becomes the mother of all demons, the wife of Lucifer, which is really quite cool, I think.
In some mythologies, the mother of vampires. So
in some mythologies, yes. Hence the Lilitu, the children, the spirits that drain men dry. You know, they're kind of like succubi. But that's fascinating too.
The Russian version is one that I really enjoy because it creates the. I always get it wrong because one of these words is a Warhammer vampire.
Right.
The other one is the actual Russian name.
You're talking about the Lamia.
No, the Strigoi.
Oh, the Strigoi. Strigoi is just another word for vampire.
But if you go right the way back through the mythologies, what have I just done there? Go right the way back through the mythologies. The Russian vampire myth is one of there isn't the two front teeth at the front. No. It's upper molar, lower molar.
That's right. Yeah,
and the Lilith myth falls heavily into that, where she was the mother of these creatures.
Of the Strigoi,
yeah. And they wouldn't just come into the house and drain you of blood. They would be, pulling your arms off and
they're very
it dry.
Violent.
They were very chaotic,
Yeah, they're not like the almost classic vampire.
No,
such. They're not as seductive. They're not as subtle.
No,
as
there's no
the classic
to
vampire.
But
they are. they are chaotic. They're bestial. Aren't
Yes.
they? They're much more bestial, a bit close to almost like the werewolf
Yes, actually.
in certain respects.
But I always find it interesting that they are being controlled and directed by the Lilith character.
If you look throughout the sort of post-Christianic Europe, really, what you will find is these stories, like the stories of the myths and stories of the Middle East, which obviously Christianity derives from,
Yes.
intermingling with the native stories and myths of this region. And you get these new creatures and archetypes occurring as a result. And it's very difficult to unpick.
It is,
It's very difficult to unpick. There are still resonances, even now, throughout our cultures and traditions of the most ancient gods that we know of, the only ones that we know of that were recorded, which are Apsu and Tiamat. The most ancient gods on record that we know human beings came up with. And those archetypes resonate down throughout all of mythology that you can name. All of mythology. And what's really interesting is they are equal.
Yes.
Male and female are equal in that archetype. In the most ancient, they're equal.
So, an hour into the show, that's
Yes.
the bases covered.
So, the Warhammer world and the Warhammer 40,000 universe are a really interesting and contentious one in this regard.
They are.
They do still carry these resonances within them, but they have complexified them to the nth degree, and they very much become their own things. Like, classically speaking, the Warhammer 40,000 universe and even the Warhammer world are almost genderless, classically speaking, because they derive from these genderless and sexless universes. However, that's not necessarily the case anymore.
No.
It's certainly not the case. It's become its own thing. Like, for example, if you look at the Imperium of Man, for example, in Warhammer 40,000, now, I imagine gender doesn't really mean much in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, because humanity is just a resource.
Yes. Faceless drones left, right, and centre.
That's what matters is humanity. That's it. I don't think, even though it is a heavily restrictive and draconian regime, I don't think they'd be that bothered about gender roles, and that seems to be borne out in the fiction. If you look in the fiction, then there are female inquisitors, there are female priests, there are female captains and navigators and warriors. There are... I don't know if there are female commissars.
I haven't come across any, but that's not to say that there isn't any.
But I'd like to see one. I'd certainly like to see one. But you also have these areas that are entirely phallocentric, that are dominated by males. So you have, for example, the High Lords of Terror, which are all male. All male. You have the Space Marines, the Adeptus Astartes, which are... Well, the Astartes are an interesting one, because they start off male. What they are at this point is a matter of some debate, because they are genderless. They don't have any gender archetype applied to them. They don't have any inclination that would make them that would provide them a gender template, and it's highly likely that they are sexless as well.
Yes.
It's highly likely. It's never been discussed. It's never been discussed in the background, or even in the Horus Heresy novels, which we'll get to, by the way, because they are much more complex in this regard than anything you'll find in the main game. It's never discussed what a Space Marine has between the legs, as it were.
No.
But I think it's fair to say, on a logical scale, that they're probably eunuchs.
I think, due to the religious nature of the Imperium of Man, that is probably a very strong argument to make.
Well, not even that. I think because of the function they perform.
There is no need to have
if they had genitalia, it would just be a weakness, wouldn't it?
Yes, actually. And
it would just be a weakness, so...
There is a female commissar, by the way.
Cool.
Commissar General Victoria Balshin.
There we go, fabulous. I imagine... It's so odd and complex, isn't it? On certain scales, the Imperium is kind of gender blind.
It is, yes.
I don't think it would care. On a wider scale, I don't think it would care. I think within certain worlds within the Imperium, which are probably dominated by the ecclesiarchy, then there would be prescribed gender roles. Very heavily prescribed gender roles.
I think it's very much a planet-to-planet experience. The Imperium as a whole, you're absolutely right. Mankind is nothing more than a faceless army of drones to be thrown either at an enemy or at a function.
Well, there does come a point, doesn't there, within the Imperium where your function matters more than any of this stuff. And
of course,
so
yes.
you probably just don't have anything. You know, the scribes, which are largely lobotomized and their entire bits of their anatomy are replaced by machines so they can fulfill their function. I imagine at that point, gender means absolutely fuck all.
And when you follow the Omnissiah, then you don't have any gender whatsoever because you are nothing more than an abstract arm of the machine. You know,
it's absolutely meaningless, isn't it?
Yes.
I imagine it very quickly becomes a totally redundant concept.
Mm-hmm. And going back to what you were saying before about Space Marines, then yes, I think you're absolutely completely correct that they will be eunuchs. The simple act and sexual drive isn't needed anymore.
No, it's
so
not
that would have been.
There are exceptions.
There are,
the Emperor's children, they definitely have some of the drives that human beings, they would have had as human beings.
Yes.
Definitely. I imagine that, like most Space Marines, assuming that this is true, that they are eunuchs or were eunuchs to begin with, I'm imagining they're not anymore.
No, something would have grown back.
Given the what the hell that would be, who knows? Because Emperor's children don't care.
It's another screaming face.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. Nobody. It doesn't. It all bets are off because here you've got chaos, and within chaos, generally speaking, again, gender means fuck all.
Yeah, very true.
It means absolutely nothing. And I imagine, Slaanesh, we will get on to more fully at some point, I'm sure, but it's true of all the Chaos Gods. What would gender mean to, like, a Tzeentch follower? You know, that is fluid on the bone, that can transform itself into crystal or into like a, you know. What the hell would gender mean to that Khorne? Why would Khorne give a shit?
As long as you can hold a weapon and
absolutely
cause mayhem and damage, then there's...
Who cares? One of his highest followers is Valkyria the Bloody.
True enough, yeah.
Who's female, you know, so...
And, of course, Nurgle loves all of his children equally.
No, and again, you have this situation where, because I imagine they're so rotted and so diseased for the most part, you can't even tell, and it doesn't really matter very much.
No, once again, the drives, the drive of the sexual act vanishes under all of the Chaos Powers except
under
Slaanesh.
Most of the Chaos Powers. Yeah, most of the Chaos Powers.
As you say, Khorne doesn't really matter because the glory and the joy is in battle.
Yeah, violence is all that matters to Khorne. So
Tzeentch,
as long as you can pick up a blade or an axe or something to club someone to death with, he's fine.
Yeah, Tzeentch, it is all to do with the almost the self-improvement, isn't it, when it comes to
with Tzeentch, I just don't think it would be a concept. I mean, I imagine that most followers of Tzeentch could probably just perform, so you know, if it was pertinent for them to operate as male or female, they would just wave their hand or perform a ritual and they would be male or female, and then they could shift one way or the other and it wouldn't matter one, you know. And I imagine that moving it away from like the physical sex to the gender identity, again, I don't think it would matter very much, because I think that Tzeentchian followers would simply be not concerned with those restrictions. They would simply be unconcerned.
Well, the form becomes the form that you need at that given point, doesn't it?
Exactly. So if it was pertinent for a Tzeentch follower to act, say, in a more classically female way or feminine way, then it would. If it was more pertinent for it to be more male and masculine, then it would. If it was pertinent for it to blend those elements, then it would.
Yeah.
Depending on much wider, bigger, and more complex agendas. It's an area of fantasy that I find really interesting, actually, because it's almost transhumanist. It's almost transhumanist, and it gives you a context for exploring how redundant these parameters actually are, and how silly they are, how much they don't really matter in a much wider context. It's something that fantasy is very good at, actually. Very good at. And again, Slaanesh is different in that both Slaanesh, the entity, and its followers are able to appreciate the elements and the beauty of both male and female. Yes. Unambiguously. And appreciate them both in the same way and to the same degree. But also any sort of any hybrid between as well, or anything beyond that. I imagine a lot of the followers of Slaanesh and the demons of Slaanesh are neither male nor female.
I remember throughout the Conrad books, which is going back to Warhammer at its conception, basically, anything that was Slaaneshi was
hermaphroditic, wasn't it? At that point,
that's the. I was trying to think of what the word would be. I was looking at hermaphrodite from various different angles there, trying to work out what the word is.
It was hermaphroditic. Yeah, they were described back then. Well, that was back in the ROC days. Obviously, the most of Slaanesh's demons certainly were hermaphroditic, and that was actually a gift that you could give to a follower of Slaanesh to make them hermaphroditic. What it represents is Slaanesh's dual nature, and also it's what was then marketed as the corruption of order, of an established order, so it was neither one thing nor the other, which now, of course, culturally has taken on an entirely other resonance, because it's not a negative thing.
No.
It's not marketed as a negative thing. In fact, it could be powerfully positive.
And what I found interesting in the Conrad books there was that it was, as much as the common man, i.e. Conrad, was shocked to discover this, each of the characters in there was a very powerful individual in their own right.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the names of them now because it's been a long time since I read the Conrad trilogy. But there's a guy who he's a high-ranking member of the Empire.
Yeah.
And he's fallen into the cult. And the negatives of his personality are his goals, not his drives.
Yeah.
So whilst he has become hermaphroditical, is that a word?
Yeah. Hermaphroditic.
Hermaphroditic. Thank you. I'm glad one of us knows what the correct terminology is. My apologies. Yeah. He himself, where he comes from and what has brought him to this point is never portrayed in a negative light. What's portrayed in the negative light is the fact he wants to overthrow the Empire and put all of the humanity to the flame.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, this is the interesting thing, isn't it, about followers of Slaanesh? And it's one of the areas where there is sincere complexity. It's the notion that Slaanesh is not inherently negative.
Yes.
Like a lot, I mean, Khorne, I would argue, is probably inherently negative. There are these notions of martial honor attached to him, and you can utilize anger and rage in a positive way, but that would never happen under Khorne.
No, it would not.
That would never happen.
I just find it interesting that is written in the book that was made in 1988.
In 1988. Well, you have to think about it. Slaanesh and Chaos in general, but Slaanesh in particular, is one of those areas where such moral qualms just dissolve. It's absolutely meaningless to have some sort of, to operate within that restriction, to regard like one gender identity or one sexual status as absolute would be utterly fucking meaningless to any of his followers.
Yeah.
Because and it's not just sexuality, it's everything. It's absolutely everything. The whole thing about Slaanesh at its core is that it's transgression. That's what fuels Slaanesh. It's the urge towards transgression. So it's breaching the parameters that culture and society and history and ideology place upon us, but also biology, which is why his followers do shift and transform and defy their own sexes and their own their own species and status.
Yeah, the mutability of any position in physical space, or for that matter, emotional space, gets changed dramatically under Slaanesh.
Nothing can be still under Slaanesh. Nothing can be still. So you cannot define as one thing or the other and legitimately worship Slaanesh. It's not possible. Everything has to be a new context. Everything has to be further on. It has to be more. It has to be more extreme. It has to be more intense.
Yes.
So notions of gender identity and of static sexuality, absolutely meaningless. It would mean nothing to them. Nothing. And this is interesting because this is where fantasy, the power of the warp, really does come into play, and science fiction in many respects, because of course you have technology which also obliterates parameters of gender identity and sexuality. It's almost like a more enlightened status. It's almost a more enlightened status in that it does away with the argument entirely.
Yeah.
There's no point to it. There's absolutely no point to it here. Identifying, like for a Slanesh follower, identifying as LGBTQ or as straight or whatever, just wouldn't mean a damn thing.
No, because the experience, you're limiting yourself to one experience and one experience only.
Absolutely, yeah. It would be stupid. In fact, it would be blasphemous for a Slanesh follower to do that. It would be entirely antithetical to what the god prescribes.
And I think it would be bad form for us to not mention the fact that the Sisters of Battle as well, both inside the fiction and out, are a fascinating experience when it comes to 40k, because inside the mythology of the world, of the universe, they are quite possibly one of the biggest platforms to discover various forms of gender equality and gender within it. Because
absolutely,
you look at something like Demonifuge.
Demonifuge, yeah.
My word. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. Your Patreon dollars are going to hard work in getting my elucidation. Oh, fucking...
It's early in the morning. Well, it was early in the morning when we
Swing
started.
and a miss. Swing and a miss. Let's try that again. So... you look at name of comic, please, George.
Demonifuge.
Thank you. And how that comic plays in how the Sisters of Battle are seen. There's an Inquisitor there. Not only does he want to torture her and hurt her because he thinks that she's a heretic, but it's a lot of because you are a woman.
Because you're a woman, yeah.
Within the battle, they are feared, and it is often mentioned that they are feared because of how strange it is to see a large group of women with this amount of weaponry. As much as they are surrounded by things like flagellants and the like, they play around a lot, and it'll be interesting to see what they're going to be like now. It's always been downplayed, because the idea of Sisters of Battle are that they are a majority female force, but it's always been there in the sidelines, in the comment sections of the book, so to speak, that it makes people nervous to see this amount of women geared up and ready to fight. And what I always like about the Sisters of Battle is that they are not good looking, so to speak. They are they're largely unsexualized depictions of women. They are warrior women, aren't they? In fact, they're in many respects, in terms of their imagery, they hearken to the most desexualized thing ever, which is a nun. Yes.
That's what they are. They're nuns with guns. Nuns,
guns and gasoline.
Yeah.
What I always find interesting is that they remind me more of something like Starship Troopers, where the Marines have their mixed sex showers, but there is nothing sexual about that shower.
There's nothing sexual about it. No. About the fact of anatomy. It's actually been totally desexualized at that point. And what that harkens back to, something that occurs in science fiction a lot, actually, and it's a reflection of our neurosis now.
Yes.
Of the way we regard anatomy, not even the act of sex or arousal or anything like that. Just anatomy, just basic anatomy, and how we are neurotic about that.
We're neurotic about people breastfeeding in public.
Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. It really is.
Sorry, my opinion was coming through there.
What I would say to people who have a thing about breastfeeding, in fact, any degree of nudity, I'm really sorry, I'm kind of liberal in this regard. What do you do when you shower?
Yep.
Do you just not look down or something? Do you wear like a Victorian corset or something?
I do, but that's got nothing to do with that.
That's got nothing to do with this.
No, that's I just like to feel fancy when I'm having a shower. But I do find it fascinating when it comes to the Sisters of Battle, because within the fiction there is all these complexities taking place. Outside of the fiction, in the real world, when it comes to the consumer has wanted Sisters of Battle for 20 years.
Yeah. Well, what they do, which is really lovely to see, they inject a very strong female presence into this universe, which is, generally speaking, phallocentric. It's a nice hook. It's a nice hook. Okay, I mean, it's interesting because it is not integrated as such. It is like a monolith in and of itself, which you could regard in one way or another,
Yeah.
but I like the fact of their presence. I like the fact that they're shaking it up a little bit, you know?
I think another interesting part of 40k is the Eldar as well, the Eldari.
Well, the Eldari are really interesting because they don't have any notions of gender at all.
Nope. Not everybody gets a gun.
The only place where that even occurs is within their mythologies. But even then, it's actually broken down. Like, some of the aspects are classically more male or female, but it's not universal. So, for example, the Dark Reapers are more classically male or masculine than the Howling Banshees, which are more classically female. But you get both male and female Eldari in both of those aspects. It doesn't mean anything to them. I'd argue it's even less in Comora.
Yeah.
The Drakari have... It would be Picayune to them. It would be myopic. It would mean they wouldn't even understand.
No.
They wouldn't even understand why you would make such distinctions. You know? The Eldari, they are not concerned by biological incidences. What they're concerned by is the paths that they follow. They're concerned by the crafts that they practice. In all their myriad lethality. So what matters to them is what you can do more than what you are. In that regard, they are totally alien from humanity. They're totally alien. They just actually don't draw distinction between male and female at all.
And you kind of look through the other races of the 40k universe as well. I mean, Tyranids, gender is...
Are sexless. They don't have any real use for sexual procreation because they just spawn.
Yep.
Orcs are the same.
Yep.
Orcs, I'd imagine, the funny thing about orcs is I can imagine them coming across like human females and trying to emulate them.
That is something that's happened in a short story I read once, where orcs would start wearing squigs as wigs and try to introduce the female
but again,
ideal.
they are not only genderless but sexless. Because they are non-sexual. They don't procreate through sexuality.
Do you know what they do?
They spore. No.
Do you know what they do, George?
What do they do?
I just realised what they do. They jump up from holes in the ground.
They actually do jump up from holes in the ground. They do.
Lord of the Rings was talking about the orcs. Yeah,
he was talking about the orcs. Yeah, they actually do jump up from holes in the ground.
Oh, that made me so happy.
And they are a very, in terms of their identity, though, they're a massively masculine force.
Very much so, yes.
Like, completely, in a very negative way, like the most negative, toxic masculinity is ramped up to the power of 11 in the orcs, because that's what they originally inspired by. They're football hooligans.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, like the worst, most base representations of maleness is in the orcs.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting, isn't it?
It is. It also makes me think twice about how much I love orcs. I love orcs. There's nothing to take away from the fact I love orcs. In
this universe, it's played off more as a joke.
Yeah.
It's not like a serious discussion of what this archetype means or anything like that. It's a joke. It's a piss take.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to be fair, one of arguably the most masculine and the most negative orcs was inspired by a female, which is of course
that's true. Actually, yeah.
You know. Thraka, was inspired by Margaret Thatcher.
Yep, which is one of the greatest things in the world.
You know, calling Margaret Thatcher female is...
Yeah, speaking of sexless and genderless.
Yeah, I was going to say, she was more of like the Terminator, wasn't she, really?
I always felt that she was the hatchet that brought to life. You know, she is just this giant axe of a creature. Anyhow, moving on. And then you've got the Tau.
The Tau do procreate, don't they?
Yes, they do.
And I don't know what the Tau's position on gender is.
Everybody is totally equal.
Yeah,
because it's
you
communism.
Can't even tell. You can't even tell by looking at them what gender they are. I mean, despite the Eldari not really... there's only one place where the Eldari do discriminate based on gender, and that's in Comora with the witch cults.
It's true enough, yes.
The witch cults are almost universally female. Males are not accorded any status in that in those arenas at all. They do exist. There are male witches, but they are like a slave caste.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's actually it's a matriarchal
Mm-hmm.
society, predominated by women.
Yeah.
Predominated by women. But outside of that, in the Cabals, for example, the Cabals, which are the vast majority of Dark Elder society, just completely blind.
Mm-hmm.
Means nothing. There are at least as many female Archons as there are male. Okay, currently the big bad one is technically male, but that could change very quickly. One of the nastiest ones, Malice, is definitely female.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean, and the homunculi again. What the fuck would gender mean to the homunculi?
True enough. Yeah.
What they change skins on a whim. They alter their own bodies on a whim. They could get up and say, "I fancy being a bit more female today, so I'll have this body."
Yeah. Yeah.
I fancy being a bit of a fusion, a bit confusing today, so I'll be both today.
Yeah. We're talking
Or I'll
about
be
race.
none.
I'm going to have 8 arms today, just for the hell of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Again, they really represent the kind of material and subject matter, the area where fantasy and science fiction, literature and art can actually really help us on a cultural level with these discussions, because they show you how Picayune they are.
Yeah.
They actually remove the conversation from its prescribed parameters, and they show you it doesn't fucking matter.
I'm trying to think of
Or it
the.
shouldn't matter.
I'm trying to think of any other races in the 40k universe where gender equality is a conversation that we could have. 'Cause, I mean,
Well,
the Necrons, not so
Necrons
much.
doesn't. Again, they've lost all of their identity, so
Yep,
it doesn't
yeah.
really matter. They're all mechanical now. So whatever identity they may have had is gone.
Very true.
And I imagine, depending on like how the Pharaons wake up, what damage has been done to their protocols depends on how they refer to themselves.
Very
so
true.
do they remember whether they were male or female before? And does that matter to them now?
Yeah, that's
Probably not.
a good question. I like
Probably
that.
not.
Yeah.
Who else have you got knocking about out there? The demons, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have an odd one with the demons. Like, we have the demonettes. All
True
the
enough.
other demons are ostensibly male, although plague bearers can be either or, because
Yes.
they're born from whoever was suffering Nurgle's rot. So it doesn't. And again, it doesn't matter because they've become plague bearers now. And plague bearers don't have any sexual organs whatsoever.
No, everything's dropped off.
Yeah, the bloodletters are the same. They're sort of powerfully male in terms of their aspects, but don't have any like indicators, shall we say,
No.
one way or the other. So, and as for the horrors of Zeech, they can be anything. They're just eternally shifting and changing and transforming. So meaningless. Demonettes are the only ones where there's any notion or concept of gender, but their status has changed a lot. So they used to be entirely hermaphroditic.
Yes.
So they were neither male nor female, although they technically have more classically female anatomy
They do, yeah.
than male. And now they went through that period where they were very female.
Mm-hmm.
They were very female indeed. And now they've gone back again. So they are hermaphroditic again.
As much as it upsets certain websites,
Yeah.
yes, Slanesh is going to be coming back, and they're going to be coming back with new demonettes. So it'll be interesting to see which
Brilliant.
area they fall down on.
I'm fascinated. I'm absolutely fascinated. For my money, I actually I know it's not a popular, I like the more lewd ones.
Yes,
I like the ones that emphasise the rapturous and enticing nature, the seductive nature of Slanesh. I really do. I don't like the ones that are really quite hideous to look at. And I know, classically the demonettes are disturbing to look at, and the enticing image is a glamour. I'm aware of that. But they do have that glamour.
Yes.
They don't have to be like entirely drop dead sexy or anything like that, but like intriguingly elegant, I think.
Yeah, there's a fine line between disturbing and disgusting.
Yeah, where they
disturbing
commingle.
you can do a lot with.
Yeah, absolutely. Where they're kind of beautiful, but it's a disturbing beauty. That's
Yeah.
kind of what I want from them. It's certainly what I want from a Keeper of Secrets, or from a Slanesh Demon Prince, or something like that. It's like Fulgrim. Fulgrim in his demonic form is absolutely beautiful. In all of the artwork, he's absolutely stunningly gorgeous. He's one of the only Primarchs who is,
Yeah.
when he was alive, when he was technically mortal Primarch, he was absolutely beautiful. He was. In fact, the Primarchs are interesting because a lot of them are. A lot of them actually are beautiful when they're mortal in unusual ways. Lorgar is described as beautiful when he's mortal. He actually captures the Emperor's physical beauty in a way that very few of the others do. Even Horus, who's a bit more sort of classically tribal warrior-like, is very captivating to look at. The only ones who aren't like physically beautiful are Leman Russ, who is kind of scarred and feral, and Angron.
Yeah.
Angron is not. Oh, and Perturabo and Martarion. Those ones are not.
Oh, Mortarion's real sexy now. Just look at him.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Mortarion's dead sexy in his demonic form, absolutely. But Fulgrim is consistent. Fulgrim is actually consistently beautiful in both of his forms. Yeah. I mean, he is that. He's almost like a Bishi character, isn't he? Like from anime.
Yes, actually, yeah, I can see that.
He's almost like he's like a living statue, an ideal of all aesthetic beauty. He's the kind of character that just looking at him is enough to wash away any concept of your parameters, your sort of sexual or romantic parameters. You would just want to prostrate yourself before him. And that's emphasized to the nth degree in his demonic form.
As I am aware that time is starting to get quite tight, I think, shall we swiftly just jump over to the old world?
Yes,
we talked a little bit about the old world earlier on when it comes to the Chaos Powers, but I think it's worth saying that throughout the old world fiction, like the Warhammer fiction, whilst the tabletop itself has never really been anything other than the boys and their toys, but that's because of where Games Workshop advertised and aimed their market, which is something that is changing. And you're actually seeing that with Age of Sigmar, the mostly female Stormcast that are coming, which is you had Talon, Black Talon, Neve Black Talon. She is been set up to be one of the big Stormcast characters.
That's brilliant.
Oh yeah, and she's fantastic. Both on the game table and in fiction. But you go through a lot of the fiction that's attached to the Warhammer world, and you find a lot of female characters who are very strong characters who they almost reach the Pratchett level. I mean, look at Genevieve
Genevieve, of course.
In both Drakenfels and the Genevieve books, and Silver Nails. She is a wonderful character who just pushes the boundaries of what a fantasy female should be, let alone the fantasy female vampire. She at one point falls in love with the playwright Dirtlick, but she leaves him. And she leaves him because it's the best thing for both of them. Yeah. You know, and never looks back, never, as much as she misses him, it's never a pining.
No, it's an adult decision that she makes,
And once again, you're looking at the late 80s, early 90s at this book, and the fact that she turned around and goes, no, this is my decision, and there is nothing you can do to sway me. And it's not...
She made the decision, that's very cool.
And it's, once again, it's not that she broke his heart, but he doesn't pine for her either. He misses her, but at no point does this become one of those quintessential, they'll get back together down the line.
No, of course.
No. He will die alone and she will go off and other things will happen to her. And I always find that a very wonderful experience when it comes to female fantasy.
I mean, there is. They really have worked to try and make the old world removed from its Tolkienite roots.
Yes.
So you do get the same archetypes. Like Galariel is obviously Galadriel. I mean, obviously Galadriel. But they've tried to make her own thing. They've really tried hard to make her her own power. Morathai.
Yes.
Morathai is probably... She is almost like the anti-Galadriel. In every respect, she's sexualized, but in a very powerful way. It's her own sexuality, it's her own appetites, She would kill any male that just displeased her. She would, rip him to shreds. And she's endured. That's what I like about Morathai. She's endured. She's powerful. She's fought with gods. She's treated with gods. She's tricked gods. She's trying to become a god herself. Yeah, she's a very powerful character, and I like her a lot.
I think Age of Sigmar is doing it right.
Yeah.
You know?
Age of Sigmar, what it's doing, in the same way it's removing itself mythologically from its roots, from Tolkien and from Moorcock and all that stuff, it's also doing it in terms of, like, its relevance.
Yes.
Like, the danger of the old world is it's so Tolkien, it's so Moorcock that it's in danger of becoming irrelevant, or even backwards. It's that same thing you're seeing in The Simpsons at the moment, you know, because it's so old. You're getting these characters who are just archetypes and stereotypes that just don't fly anymore. That are actually kind of offensive, you know? And it's refusing to change. It's refusing to. It's denying this, despite the fact that it's it's God knows how many years old.
Oh,
it's exactly
30
that.
Plus, yeah.
It's exactly that. But whereas The Simpsons is staying stolidly within its its little 1980s shell, Warhammer is changing. It's adapting itself, and not only in terms of its story, its aesthetics, its technical elements, but also its resonance.
Yes.
Like its inclusiveness. And that, I imagine, is going to be I don't imagine, it is represented in the demographics that it attracts. There are so many more women into it now.
There is. There really is.
So many more women, and that is so cool. I'm so pleased to see that. I am so pleased to see that. I don't know because I haven't done any research into it, but I'm imagining there's a lot more LGBTQ people in it now, or maybe more who are openly into it now.
Yeah. It's not something I know the answer to, unfortunately.
No, I don't either.
I can say that I know that whenever I go into my local Games Workshop store, the chances are there will be at least one female in there playing a game.
Brilliant.
And that pleases me greatly. I've talked to a few people now who have said that they got into it via the boyfriends or other halves.
Yeah.
And actually, saying that, in one case, I know somebody, a young lass, who got into it because a girlfriend did.
Brilliant.
And that made me a very happy person because it's, brilliant, what do you play? Undead. Brilliant. I will destroy them. Destroy your undead. Oh, you've actually got a Nagash.
Oh, no, you won't.
and you're half my age and a much better painter. All right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Damn.
I'm sad now. So yeah, I'm more ageist than anything else. And it's really nice to see, especially that it's a lot of younger girls that are coming through, younger women, sort of late teens to early 20s, the people I've spoken to. And
that's brilliant.
And that makes me very happy because that is, one, how the company survives,
Yep.
two, how it evolves.
It's broadening the demographics enormously, isn't it? I mean, there was a time not terribly long ago where if a woman entered a Games Workshop store, the first thing the staff would say, "Have you got a list, love?"
Yeah.
That would be the first thing they'd say, and
it
wouldn't have been an unfair thing to ask.
No, that's true.
It wouldn't have been an unfair thing to ask, but that has changed enormously. And I think it's due to a number of factors. It's due to, there's a wider cultural thing, which is the general dissolution of gender roles, and I think that's an entirely good thing, by the way.
Of course.
An entirely positive move. But it's also the fact that the game systems are moving on. It's just becoming much more inclusive now than it was.
Which it needed to be.
Of course it did.
It's not just in Warhammer, but the entire tabletop, and where I think it comes from, strangely enough, is that RPGs have had a
renaissance, I think, is what you're looking for there.
Thank you, George. You're
welcome.
Failing miserably with my language today. They've had one of them.
A renaissance.
And within that, you saw a lot more females coming into it. Now, I remember way back in the day when I used to RPG at my local games club when I was at school, it was probably a 70-30 split for male-female, mostly male, obviously.
Yeah.
But I often quite got the females coming in to play RPGs. I'm thinking of 3 people in general, and they were fantastic at it.
Yep.
Because most of the time they wanted to break the conformity as much as they could with their characters. And I think what you're seeing now is that has now led on to finding out other things within the tabletop and the gaming community. Where else can I take this? Where else can I do this? What can I do? And then you create something like Neve Blacktalon in Age of Sigmar, which then leads on to the mostly female Stormcast, the Sancrosact Chamber, and you end up with a very powerful image that people can latch onto.
That is brilliant. I mean, it's really cool. I know, and now I do know a little bit about tabletop gaming. I know that the demographics in D&D in particular now are almost 50-50.
That's awesome, yeah.
Brilliant, isn't it, eh? That is absolutely stunning. It's almost 50-50 from an arena that was almost entirely dominated by men. You know, it was almost entirely marketed at men.
Well,
it's really wonderful to see that.
And I will say,
the sad thing is, there's always been space in the game for that to occur. There's always been female characters and whatnot. It's really wonderful to see. I mean, something I've noticed in the Games Workshop side is there hasn't been a great deal of pushback against it either.
No.
There hasn't been this is happening in a lot of sort of nerdy, gamery kind of cultures. It's happening a lot. You've got the female Doctor Who, for example. There's a lot more female Transformers and things like that. It's happening in comics. It's happening all over the place. You are just getting this acknowledgement that women and LGBTQ people exist. Shock, horror. And there has been, in some of those areas, a massive blowback.
There has. What you're seeing is... It's a lot... Weirdly enough, it's mostly in the comics industry where people are pushing back, because I think for a long, long time, something like Batman, it is... It's a male power fantasy, as you said earlier.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's exactly what
Superman is the quintessential man. It's what he's basically. It's another version of He-Man.
It's the Ubermensch.
Well, He-Man's another version of Superman. Yeah. So it's weird that the comic industry is where that's happening. A place where comics were used to talk about things like the plight of whatever happened to a certain sect of people over the years. The X-Men is it's based on the idea that some Jewish men got together to talk about people being ostracized from society. Now, how is it that the modern take on equality is being pushed against by its audience in that media? It doesn't make a huge amount of sense to me.
It doesn't. But
however, what the people who have been buying comics for 40 years are now the old white bread male.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, where the problem lies.
I think that may be where the
problem
lies.
And it is changing. It is changing. Let's be fair.
It's getting better. I mean, you had it quite powerfully with the announcement of the new Doctor Who, because the character is regenerated into a female now. It's into a woman. There was a huge blowback from the fan base. Not that's unfair. Certain areas of the fan base of that show, which is bizarre to me. It's so bizarre because it's an alien.
Yeah.
It's an alien. You've never seen what the Doctor has under those wonderful costumes. For all you know, he could be like an H.R. Giger nightmare under there. Yeah?
Yeah, true enough.
It's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, it makes no sense. You've got this universe where people can be like mutilated and transformed into a Dalek or a Cyberman or whatever, and it's the fact that it's regenerated into a woman that's upset you. And no, you know what? If the template followed by the Master is anything to go by, who regenerated into a female form called Missy, it's going to be fucking spectacular.
Probably.
Because she was awesome.
All I ask for out of the new Doctor Who is that the writing's good.
This is exactly it. This is the point. My sincere hope with the new Doctor Who is that it's the best season ever. I really want this to mark a sea change in the quality of the writing, the direction of the story. I just want it to be good. In fact, I want it to be the best season ever, because I want it to be able to kick them up the arse, the ones who are whinging and moaning about it, on the basis that it's a woman playing the character now. It's like, so what?
So I think then, with that note, because we've now passed the hour-and-a-half mark...
Oh, we're getting on, yes?
Yes, I think it's probably time to start closing things down. Obviously, there is no answer to be had here. There is merely a discussion.
We've only scratched the surface here. There's so much more we could go into. It's so complex. We have only scratched the surface. This is, more than anything, this has been like a cipher for discussion, really.
Yes.
Half the stuff I was thinking of talking about, we just can't fit in.
But there's nothing stopping us from coming back to this and
absolutely not
pointing out various areas and sticking to those areas for discussion.
I'd love to come back and talk about it, because there is much more.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we will do. And I'm hoping that this has opened up the gates a little bit for people to come to us to say, yes, I would love to come onto the show to discuss this.
Oh, brilliant. Yes, that would be wonderful.
So that is something I'd like to put out there. Obviously, this is a patron-only show, so only patrons would hear it. But we'll work something out on that way to try and get people interested. If, for example, somebody out there isn't a patron but would like to have this discussion, there are ways and means of doing that.
Absolutely.
So, with that being said, then, I think we should get out of here. We won't do any advertisements because people have paid for this show.
Absolutely, yes, that's fine.
Let's not advertise other stuff. So, all that remains to be said is thank you very much, George.
My pleasure. This has been a really interesting one, actually. One I was very interested in getting into. So, thank you, Adam, and thanks for listening, guys. Thank you so much.
And as always, thank you guys at home. You take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Earth, by air, rain and fire. The only things a real troll desire. But to smash and to mash and to bash and maybe mangle. Hear it strangle. Thorn, you'll be warned. My low's gonna trash ya. Say your prayers with voodoo, bash ya, bash ya. Time for fun, we're gonna run ya through. Too bad for you.
It's only once a generation.
One victor wins the confrontation.
Standing here, got no fear. I'm the best in the arena.
Man, you never seen a hero cut you down to zero.
Victory is no joke. Careful at your door.
By earth, by air, rain and fire. The only things a real troll desire. But to smash and to mash and to bash and maybe mangle. Hear it strangle. Thorn, you'll be warned. My low is gonna trash ya. Say your prayers with voodoo, bash ya, bash ya. Time for fun, we're gonna run ya through. Too bad for you.
It's only once a generation.
One victor wins the confrontation.
Standing here, got no fear. I'm the best in the arena.
Man, you never seen a hero cut you down to zero.
Victory is no joke. Careful at your door.
Get your scars. Our star is born.